This is the next bill. We are starting hearing for Council Resolution 21-0011R, informal hearing, financial literacy curriculum content within the Baltimore City Public School System for the purpose of inviting the Chief Executive Officer of Baltimore City School System, the Commissioners for the School Board of Commissioners for the Baltimore City School System, Director of the Mayor's Office of Employment Development, and Executive Director for the Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success to appear before the City Council to discuss how they're going to develop curriculum content for a course in financial literacy. Require the curriculum content include instruction in choosing a career, earning an income, savings, and investing money, credit, and budgeting, and require students to complete a course in financial literacy in order to graduate from high school in Baltimore City Public Schools. At the request of Councilwoman Sharon Middleton, 6th District, asks if Council President Middleton, the primary sponsor of this resolution, if she would like to give opening remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just briefly, I'd like to thank all the agencies involved for getting all your information together for this hearing. This particular subject matter is just very important to me in my my beginning career as an educator. I taught a subject called independent living, was one of my courses, and to date, that course itself no longer exists, but I have very strong feelings that the course itself needs to come back as a independent course for high schoolers, especially in light of the situation that our city is going through. And we just had this hearing on hiring and jobs, and it's just a great time where the school system really needs to consider bringing this back as a independent subject. And I'll just leave it there. Again, I appreciate everyone coming together to give us information, and the school system for considering this, and we can move on to the presentation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I'm going to be turning this hearing over to our CEO of the school system, Sonia Santa-Lisa, Chief Executive for the Baltimore City School System, for remarks and a PowerPoint presentation. Ms. Santa-Lisa, please introduce your team.
Councilman Stokes, this is Melissa Broom with City Schools. Dr. Santa-Lisa is in the meeting as a participant, but needs to be promoted to panelist.
Okay, she's been elevated already.
And Joan Dabrowski as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
And this is Dewana Starrett. Linda Chinney, the board chair, is on, and she was going to start remarks first and then pass it on to the CEO, if that's okay with the chair.
Could you repeat that again? I'm sorry.
Sure, it's Dewana Starrett from the board, this board legislative liaison. Linda Chinney, the board chair, is in as a panelist, and she was going to open remarks and then pass it on to the CEO, if that's okay with you, Mr. Chair.
Sure. You hear me?
Yes, and Ms. Chinney should be.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and committee members. This is Linda Chinney, the chair for the Baltimore City Board of School Commissioners. And as was stated, shortly you're going to be hearing from Dr. Santa-Lisa and her staff about the importance of financial literacy and how it's incorporated into our current curriculum. I just wanted to give a little background from the vantage point of the board. Acknowledgement that the State Board of Education establishes basic policy and guidelines for the program of instruction for the state's public schools. And each Board of Education then must establish curriculum guides and courses of study for schools under its jurisdiction. All the policies and rules and regulations for graduation from students in Maryland public schools are established by both the local boards using the guidelines from the State Board of Education. The current regulations require that each local school system must provide personal financial literacy programs in elementary, middle, and high schools that at least meet the content standards in the regulations established by the state board. And like many other districts in Maryland, city schools implements personal financial literacy education within courses that are required for graduation. Since September of 2011 and every 5 years after that, the local superintendents have certified to the state superintendent that the instructional program in all those levels, elementary, middle, and high, are meeting at a minimum the financial literacy content standards described by the state board. We consider financial literacy a very important issue, as I know you do, not only for our students, but for adults as well. And so as Dr. Santelises and her staff will detail for you the program and how it's integrated into courses that we are offering currently for our students. So again, I want to thank you for the opportunity. I just wanted you to know that I will be here for the presentation, but I wanted you to hear from the vantage point of the board and how we review and make certain that those state guidelines are met. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Chair Chinya. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. So as a way of beginning, I want to just greet, excuse me, Chair Stokes and the entirety of the council and the subcommittee today, as well as I know Councilwoman Middleton, who just spoke. And I think a great way to start is to just let everyone know that yesterday, Mr. Charles Emerson, an ESOL teacher at Vanguard Collegiate Middle School, was honored as the outstanding middle school teacher for this year's Financial Education and Capability Awards. Mr. Emerson was cited for his outstanding service in meeting the financial literacy needs of our English learners by helping them to understand financial management concepts and behaviors like budgeting, careers and income, credit, savings, financial decision-making, values and habits about money. These awards are coordinated by the Cash Campaign of Maryland, the Maryland Council on Economic Education, and the Maryland State Department of Education. So congratulations again to Mr. Emerson. I will begin by just reiterating and thanking Board Chinya for those comments, and just reiterating that we want our city school students to graduate from high school ready to thrive. As part of this work, we recognize that students need opportunities to learn a variety of skills, including how to manage their money. This has been an ongoing, I would say, not necessarily just a request, but I think expectation from large numbers of our community members, including Council Member Middleton. Our investment in new career readiness and in a new career readiness plan that will help students learn the skills needed to earn family supporting wages comes alongside the city's continued investment in YouthWorks. We know our young people want to work, and we have established and continue to develop a variety of learning opportunities so our students can keep and grow the money that they earn. In this presentation, you will see financial literacy offerings that start as early as 5th grade and continue through high school. You will all see that our offerings emerge in different departments and programs. This is intentional. Based on the science of how young people learn, our students need multiple opportunities across the years to gain and build upon financial literacy concepts, rather than getting all of the information at one time in one class. We recognize as city schools that we cannot do this work alone. You will notice that our financial literacy work is done in partnership with excellent organizations and businesses around Baltimore City and our country. Our students benefit when the whole community comes around them to help them succeed, and this work reflects that belief. Finally, City Schools brings a continuous improvement lens to all areas of our work. We are consistently speaking to our teachers, understanding the needs and their students' needs, and responding to the evolving guidance from the field. This approach holds true for our financial education efforts. We study our programs and how we implement them, always with an eye towards improvement. With this context in mind, I am pleased to introduce our new Chief Academic Officer, Dr. Joan Dabrowski, who will begin the presentation. Thank you, Chairman Stokes.
Good morning. Can folks hear me? Just want to confirm.
Yes.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Santelises, and thank you to the council members for this opportunity. I am pleased to be here today to talk with you about our efforts in financial literacy. Could we move to the next slide, please? Great. So our hope this morning is to do 3 things for you. So first and foremost, I want to introduce the City School team who oversees our work in financial literacy. I want to highlight the MSDE financial literacy standards that both guide and inform our efforts. And then I want to provide information on where and how the financial literacy is currently included in our City Schools curriculum. And also we want to signal where we are expanding our offerings. As Dr. Santelises mentioned in her opening remarks, we continue to be informed by the field. And like other members have shared earlier in this presentation, the urgency and prioritization of financial literacy is clear on our radar as well. So next slide, please. So I have here today with me a team of colleagues who do this work, and we do this work together. So first and foremost, I want to introduce Janice Lane, our Executive Director for Teaching and Learning, Dr. Rachel Pfeiffer, our Executive Director of College and Career Readiness, Kelly Gonzalez, the Director for Social Studies, Fine Arts, and World Languages, and Monica Whippo, our Coordinator of Social Studies. Next slide, please. So as we said earlier, Maryland State curriculum has put forward their expectations for the standards that we need to be introducing our students to, and to ensure mastery of these standards across grades 3 through 12. So the 6 key standards are here for you to see, but I think what's important for you to notice is that these standards are going to appear at multiple times across the span, as Dr. Santelises mentioned. So you will see evidence that we are working towards these standards at both at the elementary, middle, and high school levels. So again, standard 1 is really about the financial responsibility of decision-making. Standard 2 emphasizes careers, education, and income. Standard 3 is talking about planning and managing money. We move into credit and debt. We teach about creating and building wealth and how to manage risk and preserve wealth. So these are the standards you will see reflected in our curriculum. And so at this point, I'm going to transition to our social studies coordinator, Ms. Monica Whippo.
Thank you, Dr. Dabrowski. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. My name is Monica Whippo. I'm the coordinator of social studies for Baltimore City Public Schools. And I am happy to be able to speak to social studies today in terms of financial literacy. Within Baltimore City Public Schools, our students engage with financial literacy programming in grades 5, 7,
Monica,
and
real
in high
quick.
school American government.
Miss Monica, I'm sorry. Dr. Santa Lisa, we trying to mute you. Could you mute yourself?
Yeah, and it's not allowing me, Chair.
Oh,
I've been
okay,
pressing
sorry.
it at least 10 times.
Okay, thank you. Miss Monica, you can continue. Sorry about that.
No worries, thank you. So again, in Baltimore City Public Schools, our students engage with financial literacy programming in their social studies courses in grades 5 and 7 and high school American government. These programs are all free to schools and they're built into the curriculum for each course. Each year, we provide professional development to teachers in these grades to familiarize them with the programs and to collect any needed materials to deliver the curriculum. This chart that you see here shows a snapshot of how each grade level program aligns to each of the 6 MSDE personal financial literacy standards. And next, I'm going to go into some detail about each of these programs. Can I have the next slide, please? Thank you very much. In grade 5, students participate in Junior Achievement BizTown. Junior Achievement's program description states that JA BizTown combines in-class learning with a day-long visit to a simulated town. This popular program allows elementary school students to operate banks, manage restaurants, write checks, and vote for the mayor. The program helps students to connect the dots between what they learn in school and the real world. In this program, our students participate in classroom lessons before visiting the physical BizTown location in Owings Mills. Volunteers from local companies also join students at each visit to support them through the simulation that they participate in. Each year, the trip dates are scheduled for each school at the beginning of the year, and the Junior Achievement staff members support teachers in delivering the associated curriculum at the appropriate timing before their trip. This program is incredibly popular. We found over the years that students and teachers and parents and the community partners who volunteer consistently express meaningful learning and an overall positive experience. Next slide, please. In grade 7, students also participate in a Junior Achievement programming, and this program is called Finance Park Virtual. According to their program description, JA Finance Park is Junior Achievement's capstone program for personal financial planning and career exploration. It comprises a curriculum and a simulation, similar to what BizTown offers in 5th grade, and it helps students in grades 7 through 12 build a foundation on which they can make intelligent financial decisions that last a lifetime. Since we began incorporating this program, Finance Park has been fully virtual. So it's offered to students and teachers. They can engage directly on a computer. There are also some physical materials that teachers pick up during professional development. Junior Achievement has been working to build a physical facility in downtown Baltimore for students to visit to make the experience more similar to the 5th grade BizTown experience. And thank you. In American Government, our students participate in EverFi's financial literacy course for high school. EverFi's program is a digital education program that teaches students how to make wise financial decisions to promote financial well-being over the course of their lifetime. So this is also a fully virtual program. It's free for students and teachers to access at any time during the school year, and it covers a wide range of topics on financial literacy standards as well. I'm now happy to pass the mic over to Dr. Pfeiffer from our College and Career Readiness Office.
Thank you, Monica. Sorry, it took me a second to unmute. It's a pleasure to be here with you all today and want to share, just following on from what Monica shared, what we are doing for students in high school from the college and career readiness lens. So what you see here on the left is are the current offerings that we've had this year as we build out this work in a robust way. So one of the things that I want to make sure everyone knows is that our college and career readiness trajectory, which is what we call our series of college and career readiness lessons that students get in grades 6 through 12 incorporates financial literacy, as well as a number of other adjacent topics that are important for students to know to be ready for that transition out of high school. And I'll show you details of that in a moment. We also have partnered with local banks for literacy training days, and we find that they're incredibly popular with our students. And I should note that in many cases, it's our K through 8s who are even, who are incredibly excited about it as well, not just our high school students. We find that, and just a note on that, we find that counselors are incredible resources and partners in this work with us, and that as we share these opportunities with them, they make sure that they happen for the young people at their schools. We also have what we call our playlist. So we have done a variety of different sessions over the course of the year, and I'll show more details in a moment about those. And we recorded them. And so students, families at any point in time can go to our city schools YouTube page and find all these sessions that they can go to. So perhaps if they have questions and didn't quite remember an answer previously or just want to get a refresher, they can do that. And I'm excited that that includes families as well. We also have schools that are engaging with the stock market game and the Network for Teaching Entrepreneurship, which has been something that we also have embedded into some of our career and technical education pathways. I also want to talk through what we project having for next school year as we continue to build this work. We have developed a work-based learning course that will roll out for the first time in recent history this next year, and financial literacy is embedded in that course as we teach and prepare students for work-based learning experiences. Ernst & Young locally has had a number of meetings with us and are really excited to partner with us. They want to do a book club using the book Millionaire Next Door. We have a number of schools that, well, we will be able to offer schools the opportunity to sign up for a 5-week course run by M&T Bank's Operation Hope. And Ortis Academy, which is a local financial intelligence firm, is working with us to set up some after-school clubs that will allow us to be able to support students in fun ways after school to really engage more with financial literacy. So as I mentioned before, we have our college and career readiness lessons that our counselors are teaching students. There's one lesson a month that students get during their time in 6th through 12th grade. And as you can see here, there are a variety of different topics, but they're all connected in many ways, right? Whether it's students starting in middle school looking at finding their passion and then thinking through how that connects to the high schools that they want to choose, to looking and learning about colleges, thinking about the skills they'll need for employment, and then financial literacy, making sure that students are getting exposed to that content so that they have the opportunity to put all the pieces together for understanding how thinking about their next steps ties to their interests, what they're learning in school, and then how they will navigate gaining and spending and making money in the future. The last thing I want to share with you is just more details about our city schools college and career readiness playlist. Wanted just to be more specific about some of the topics that we've covered. You see here just a range of different topics that we have had sessions with students and in some cases families over the course of this year to discuss, to get student questions, to respond to their questions. Sometimes we've just run them as a district staff. Sometimes we've brought in external support. So, when we were talking about financial aid during COVID, we brought in college financial aid officers who came and shared their perspective and their experiences. we have a wealth of resources in this city and so many people who are excited to partner with us to support our young people. And so it's been a pleasure to work alongside them to ensure our young people are getting what they need in terms of financial literacy knowledge. So I will pause there.
Thank you, Dr. Pfeiffer. At this point, we are certainly available to answer questions or provide additional information.
Thank you for the presentation, but the bill was referred to 4 other agencies. So Ms. Ellen DePietro, do you have any comments you'd like to share? She's not here? Okay. Mr. Jason Cohen, do you have, you submitted an agency report. Do you want to talk about the report? Do you have any additional comments that you'd like to share?
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the council. This is Mackenzie Garvin. Director
okay.
Perkins Cohen had to drop off, but we did provide written testimony in support of this. We did note in our written testimony that we are offering some financial literacy over the summer for youth who are in youth works. We are working with the Cash Campaign, and we have money makers who are youth who are peer counselors, and we also have strong partnerships with Security Plus Federal Credit Union to offer affordable banking products.
Thank you. The Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success, Leah Ferguson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We also submitted some written testimony. We very much support the expansion and deepening of financial literacy education and resources to our young people across the city. We acknowledge there are a number of partners in this city who are doing remarkable works. Many have been mentioned here today as already engaged with the district in strong partnerships. We would also just like to note that while we support the expansion of financial literacy education, including all the components that are named in this bill, we defer to Baltimore City Public Schools and to MSDE around graduation requirements.
Thank you, Department of Finance. I see Mr. Ern Moore or Marva James, if you have any, you submit a favor agency report. You want to talk about your report or any comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for having the Department of Finance this morning. Aaron Moore, Assistant Budget Director. The Finance Department stands by its written testimony. And if you don't mind, I'd just like to take 1 minute to just say how important this is, of course, to the Finance Department, and also to myself. Collective personal finance is major for the city's economy. You know, we've seen the 2008 foreclosure crisis and financial crisis that rocked the city's financial fiscal health. And it's important for folks to gain this education to recognize predatory lending. Many of the students who will be receiving this education will soon be walking into a nearly $2 trillion student debt crisis that is affecting the city as well too. And many students will fall into that. And although I did see much in the presentation about scholarships and FAFSA and student aid, I did not see the word loan in that presentation. In addition, right now we're going through a worldwide global pandemic where folks have lost jobs, and the important concept of having an emergency fund is more important now than ever. Including, you know, the concepts of savings, banking, credit, investing, and retirement. And there's a large disparity, which we point out in our testimony, amongst the population that the school system primarily serves. So as I mentioned, I am the Assistant Budget Director for the city, and my first formal education came from high school in the NAF, Academy of Finance program. And, you know, that's of course important to me. We played the stock market game when I was in school. In addition to that, I actually also taught the Operation Hope curriculum. But we definitely need to do more than just fly-in days, but a serious class about this matter. And I encourage, I'm encouraged by what the school system is doing and hope that we can do more. And, you know, the Finance Department welcomes this as an opportunity for the city's whole financial health collectively through personal finance. So thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate the opportunity to share.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. We're gonna now go to the committee members, and I'm gonna go in this order who have any questions. First, we're gonna do Councilwoman Middleton from the 6th District, then Councilwoman Felicia Porter from the 10th, and Councilman Zeke from the 1st, Councilman Glover from the 13th, Councilman Bullock from the 5th. So Councilwoman Sharon Middleton from the 6th District. Your
Thank you.
questions or concerns?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I first want to thank Assistant Director Aaron Moore for taking time to give some personal testimony. As you know, he's part of our city finance department, and we, in our briefings that the finance department gives to the council, and my, I guess, intimate relationship with financial literacy curriculum, we had a long discussion as well. And I definitely appreciate you, Assistant Director Moore, for including your experience, and look where you are now. So much success for you as you continue in your successful finance career. And I also like to thank Dr. Santelises for her presentation and recognizing Mr. Charles Emerson, a middle school teacher, and for his efforts and experiences that has taken him to really being recognized in the middle school curriculum. And Mr. Chair, I have well, of course, as sponsor of the bill, I have several questions and requests, but I'm just going to kind of go through a few and then take a break. And if any other council members have things to add, and then you can come back, because I just have a few, extra things just to kind of ask and talk about. So,
Vice Chair, before you start, I just want to say to Mr. Moore, Aaron Moore, he is, NAF is in the 12th District, so I know the great things that's coming out of that school, so congratulations.
all right. So, as everyone mentions, it's, and as it was explained, it's all about partnerships and just continuing these efforts. And as you all know, Baltimore City has one of the highest poverty rates. I mean, we could go down the list for a number of things that are problems that exist in our city that we continue to work for and take it to another level, especially with the school system. And so my first question is, if we want to see an independent course in financial literacy added as a citywide high school graduation requirement, what is the process that we would need to follow to implement that change? That's my first question. That's directed to the school system.
Yes, hi, sorry, I was just trying to unmute myself. Thank you so much. No, the question is we would have to put forward a course application for having that new course created. As I think we've shared earlier, there are MSDE requirements for graduation, and sort of they gear, or they sort of guide us in terms of what is required. But we as a school district certainly have an opportunity to have additional electives and things there. I would actually defer to Dr. Pfeiffer in terms of some of the ways in which we would see that course appear in all of our high schools, what that would look like and what that would require.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Dabrowski. We can follow up with additional details as needed, but a change to the graduation requirements, currently 21 credits are required. And so if we were to add to that, that would also need to go before our board to make that change. We would also just need to take a look at scheduling and staffing within the high schools. Currently schools, as you well know, Councilwoman Middleton, are scheduled or are staffed, right, based on the courses that need to be taught. And so what I would anticipate is that schools would need to hire additional staff because their current staffing is meeting the existing needs of the graduation requirements, but typically not with a lot of extra wiggle room. So I think we need to consider that as well.
Okay, thank you. And then I guess my next few questions basically come from, and I know you have mentioned how you're guided by the Maryland State Department of Education. So the next few questions are with that. Can you explain to us how many course hours are spent at the high school level on personal finance unit? Or how many hours do you think is spent on this subject in the high schools?
I will actually defer to Monica Whippo for the specific 10th grade experience, and then I can follow up with the other opportunities.
Thank you, Dr. Pfeiffer. The financial literacy course that we offer through EverFi for American government students consists of 7 different lessons. And with each lesson, there are a number of different topics and objectives. So within our scope and sequence, we have teachers delivering this in May and through the end of the school year. To be perfectly honest, I don't know exactly how many hours the program takes. I think it depends on the classes and the students and the scheduling within each of those buildings, but it does take several weeks to complete the program.
And this is through your U.S. history, government, or world history course, correct?
It's built into American government, yes.
Okay. And of course, I'm feeling that, again, this could be a whole separate course because a lot of the U.S. government coursework is geared towards, the required history test. Is that correct?
There is a test associated with American government. It is a graduation requirement for MSDE, yes.
Okay. I would, so I like a request to be sent to the committee. Can the school system submit to the committee the unit lesson plans and instructional video content from the 5 separate high schools that offer this? That's a request that I'm asking you to send to the committee.
Councilwoman, can you restate that request again so it can be clear?
The lesson plans and instructional video content from the 5 separate high schools, or whatever number of high schools offer or this financial literacy. I would like the committee to receive the lesson plan, the unit lesson plans that are used, and the instructional video content.
Thank you.
Yep, and just to be clear, so that's for the grade 10, the American government, the EverFi financial literacy portion. That's what we're looking to make sure we get to you, correct?
If that's all you have, yes.
Yep, okay.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Is that it?
Matt, Chairman Stokes, this is DeWanna Stewart. I just wanted to add to Councilwoman Middleton to let her know that also of the 24 school districts in the state, 17 of them, like Baltimore City, incorporate financial literacy into other courses, and many of them are in government or U.S. history courses around the state. So I just wanted to let you know that it wasn't unusual that it would be part of the government course.
Understood. And then I'll do one more question, Mr. Chair, and then you can get back to the other council members and then to me. So in the 5th and 7th grade, there's, you had mentioned the Business Town Experience school year. I guess this is a 2-part question. In your estimation, what percentage of our 5th grade students take part in the Business Town Experience each year? And what percentage in the 7th grade take part in the Finance Park Experience?
I don't want to, the percentage number I don't have available immediately, but I can tell you with certainty that our team sits down with the JA team every summer And we look at the list of schools that offer 5th grade to our students, and we schedule all of those schools to engage in a trip to BizTown. We also have junior achievement come to systemic PD sessions that are offered for 7th grade teachers, which are required systemic professional development sessions. And the teachers receive professional development on Finance Park, and it is also written into the scope and sequence for 7th grade. The expectation is that all of our 5th and 7th grade students are participating in these programs.
So when they take part in these external experiences, are they given a pre-post assessment to measure their knowledge of material? Can you share with the committee the data that is showing about their engagement and retention of the information?
Junior Achievement does collect impact reports based on the data from the student performance. There are 12 lesson plans that are delivered ahead of BizTown. I don't remember the exact number, but there are a number of lesson plans involved with Finance Park Virtual as well over the course of several units. And within them, there is data collection in terms of student learning and achievement.
Okay. Mr. Chair, you can check with the other committee members and then come back to me.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Vice President. Ms. Monica, can those 2 requests that Councilwoman Miller to ask for the committee to receive, can we make sure we get them also to all committee members?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Our next committee member, Councilwoman Felicia Porter from the 10th District.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I don't have any questions at this time. I just want to say positively affirming Vice Chair Middleton's leading this charge for financial literacy amongst youth and young adult in Baltimore City Public Schools. So I don't have any further questions, sir.
Thank you. Councilman Cohen from the 1st District. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all the agencies and to Vice President Middleton for the important resolution. Also having been a teacher myself with middle school kids, we know that young people in Baltimore have been subject to any number of scams, be it credit card related, be it other deceptive products. Of course, as Mr. Moore mentioned, the 2008 financial collapse. And so just to reemphasize the importance of understanding the terrain and the landscape. And the only thing I want to throw out, and it's maybe a question for Mr. Moore or maybe the school system, but is, we know that in the past, unfortunately, several of our banks participated in predatory subprime lending. We actually ended up suing Wells Fargo successfully, or at least we ended up with a settlement. So I'm curious, as we're thinking about sort of the relationship with banks, lending institutions, and particularly even check cashing places, which we know can be usurious and predatory. How are we warning young people to avoid institutions that may be harmful? I actually guess this is a question for the school system, but I just think Baltimore has a very sort of direct history with subprime lending and would love to know your thoughts on it currently.
I'll jump in just to say that is certainly an area that we've started, but I think can grow in. One of our partnerships in the past has actually been related to for-profit schools. I'm working with an initiative called Know Before You Enroll, right? And helping our young people to understand that many of the courses that they might take out significant loans. And I appreciate Mr. Moore sharing, the concern about loans and how we address that, and just really letting young people know that there are courses at our local community college, right, that they could take, for considerably less than the amount that is being charged by many of these for-profit programs. So I will say that that's one area that we have laid the groundwork and kind of discussed with young people. I do appreciate your point about banking and just being really clear with them on how to identify predatory approaches, and noting that as a point for growth.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, just knowing that, like, I remember getting my first credit card and being like, oh, this is great, free, I can just use this thing and have, money. But that's not, of course, what happens. And definitely appreciate your point, Dr. Pfeiffer, about the for-profit colleges, which we know typically are scams. Having worked with high school students that often would get these very glossy, well-marketed brochures that promise all kinds of great things, and then knowing that they are often there simply to take our children's Pell Grants away and put them into debt. Many of our kids don't finish. Even if they do, they're unaccredited. So I think that is a real area to push on for you all as well. And as well as Baltimore's own unique history with subprime lending, I think is important too. But again, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Madam Vice President, and really glad to see this issue elevated.
Thank you, Councilor. You didn't swipe your card a lot when you first got it, did you?
No, sir.
Our next committee member is our Professor, Councilman John Bullock from the 9th District. Any questions, Councilman?
I'm sorry. Again, thank you, Mr. Chair, and also thank you to our colleague, Madam Vice President Middleton, for pushing this bill forward. I can think about my experience and things I still use in terms of learning how to balance a checkbook and all those skills in terms of being able to take care of a household and a family and being an educator. I also echo what Councilman Cohen mentioned in terms of our college students and what that means in terms of access. I do also think that this is very timely. I'm thinking about, my 2 young boys who are in Baltimore City schools, and even though they have a support system at home in terms of these skills, I know that a lot of our young people need that extra tutelage. And so this is really very timely, thinking about where you are. Also think about what Mr. Moore mentioned as well. I'm thinking about this time period in the country and in the city, and just folks being aware of what's out there. I will say, just thinking about the difference between banks and credit unions, this is very important information. And even for my college students, we talk to them about credit and talking to them about buying a home and mortgages and all the different products out there. So we need to start early and make sure this gets ingrained in our young people, because one time isn't enough. So I'm also very encouraged to hear this is an ongoing process that over years that this is continuing. So I would say kudos to what the school system is doing. Also in terms of making sure that there are partners who are helping to facilitate this process. It's a very worthwhile effort. So again, thank you for the opportunity. No question, just a good thumbs up. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Glover from the 13th District. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have no questions.
Okay. Before we start, I'm gonna ask all speakers and panelists to mute yourself when you're not speaking, identify yourself.
Mr. Chair, before you can I just finish my?
Oh, I'm sorry, Councilwoman, you're right. Yes,
Thank you.
Yours.
Thank you. And thank you for my colleagues for your words and supporting the importance and need of this continued financial literacy curriculum. So basically, it's 2 more questions. I know Ms. Durant had mentioned, curriculum around the state, but I do know that there are 8 other Maryland jurisdictions that currently have a financial literacy as a graduation requirement. And the course is offered in a half or a full semester format. So given how the course is structured in other jurisdictions, can you discuss with us from a policy and practice standpoint, what barriers, if any, would this pose to your operations, your current operations of how you are doing financial literacy curriculum?
Yes, no, thank you for that question. I would just echo what Dr. Pfeiffer signaled a little earlier around this piece around staffing and schedules. And so if we were going to move to a standalone course as an expectation for graduation, that would certainly impact scheduling and staffing. So I think that would be a complexity for us to work through if that was the direction. And I will just go back to the sort of the developmental piece, which we hope we've been able to highlight here today, about this notion of financial literacy education showing up multiple times in multiple places across the trajectory of elementary, middle, and high school. And as we think about it, both in the American history realm of social studies and also in the work that Dr. Pfeiffer is leading in her team with college and career readiness. I advocate that from sort of the academic lens in saying that having it integrated very intentionally, and I think where we can do really thoughtful work on is making that very explicit and calling out these very specific standards that we're naming and quantifying that. I think that's really good feedback for our team. But I would caution us on the space of just moving to a standalone. I worry if that approach might isolate it in a way that may actually, prevent opportunities for us to connect this to lots of different places in our curriculum. And so as I think about it, particularly coming in new, I am looking at all of these things across academics and thinking about this moment in time right now and the urgency of this work and how we might reimagine what that curricular experience looks like for students. And I just want to really affirm the concerns that folks have raised today resonate for me as I think about this for our young people. So I would say the obstacles are the staffing and the scheduling. And I think that would be that space. And then I would also just, consider the academic opportunities when we integrate it. But I think the feedback I'm hearing too is being very intentional and making sure we're measuring what our students are getting from those experiences.
And I totally agree with you. Don't get me wrong. I'm glad that you are starting this phase in the elementary school on up. No negativity there at all. But I think a culminating piece would really be in that high school level. And our children, it shows that we need this in the city. We desperately need this added piece. And then, so I'm getting to my last, question and point. So I do know that Prince George's County school system projects that implementing an independent financial literacy course countywide for them would require 40 new teachers with a funding allocation of $4 million to the school system. Can your school system provide the city council with some projections on how much it would cost to implement this requirement as an independent elective course citywide? That's something that I'm sure you're going to have to research and try to figure out. And, when you get that information, please share it with us.
Certainly, yes.
Okay.
So Councilwoman, you asking for that information to be
Yes.
requested for the committee? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
And then I'll stop there, Mr. Chair. You can go ahead with your attendees.
Before I have one question, and I know at one time, one of the questions that Councilwoman Miller talked about was U.S. history, government, or world history. I don't know if anybody on this call, and I'm sure Dr. Sanders knew Hilton Bostic, who graduated from Morgan, was very active in Black history in the school system. My question is, do we still have Black history in our schools? If we do, what schools are there? If not, how can we now implement it back into the schools? Because Hilton Bostic was very instrumental in bringing the Black history back into our schools here in Baltimore. So anybody from the school system can answer the question?
I'm wondering either if Janice or Kelly might be able to speak to that question.
Sure. Good afternoon, Council. This is Janice Lane, Executive Director of Teaching and Learning. Sorry, my computer's a little slow here. We currently do have an elective course that is a separate Black history course, but part of the work that we've been doing around Be More Me is work that has been intentionally designed in social studies. It started in early grades in 6 through 9, and then has now been built in 6 through 12, and actually back mapping now down 3 to 5, where we're really looking at the wealth of history, the specific gifts of Baltimore, and how that relates to students, so that it is not only a school experience, but really looks at bringing the school and the community together, and how students interact with the community outside of school. And then again, in high school, it is an elective course that students can take. And Monica can provide more details around that if you'd like more information.
My question was, you said it's elective. I mean, I understand that, but how are we implementing? Because when it's elective, you give them a choice, like yes or no. And my next question would be, can you give the committee those schools that that actually have that at the school, and the percentage of how many students are actually selecting yes to be a part of that course? Because sometimes it's like when you go to college, your professor not holding your hand no more. So to me, Black history means a lot here in Baltimore, and for it to just be an elective, how many are participating and how many are not?
Sure, we can. Absolutely. We can provide the elective course information, and we can also provide an overview of the Be More curriculum that is, as I said, embedded in the core coursework that students are doing throughout their elementary and high school career there.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
We will now take public testimony. For those who sign in using a computer, please use the raise hand function to indicate that you wish to testify. We will start with you and Mrs. Curran. We'll call out the first person. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, it appears to be no public testimony at this time. Back to you.
I believe we don't have no call-ins also, am I correct? Okay. Well, I want to thank everybody on this call, Dr. Santa Lisa. I want to thank you and your staff. I want to thank all my committee members, part of the education workforce development. And before we close or recess, Councilwoman Middleton, do you have any closing remarks?
Again, I'd like to thank the school system for taking your time to address this important subject matter, and hoping we can continue to work together just to, again, as some of my colleagues have mentioned, elevate this particular curriculum. Again, where our city is we have a very high poverty rate. Our assistant finance director took time to give his personal feelings and his successes as he became our assistant finance director. I'm glad you are starting in the elementary school, but it's something that just really needs to continue. And, as our high school kids, they do have graduation requirements. They do have a certain number of credits. This is a very important subject. And as I mentioned, I know it's in 7 or 8 other jurisdictions, and other jurisdictions are also looking at this. And Baltimore City is in dire need of this type of hands-on curriculum to get our students that are leaving high school just acclimated and knowing things ahead of time. And it takes several years of learning that subject. I know that I had it, and I give credit to that course to have me where I am today. So and I think it's needed more than, when I was a high school student. So please, gather the information. We want to, as a council, work with you on this. And that's the end of my comments. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. This hearing is in recess. It will be continued at a later date. And again, I want to thank everyone on this call, colleagues for their questions and concerns. Everybody have a great evening. Be safe. And wear your mask.